Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 187. Thank you for joining us. Today, Jordan returns to join Bonnie and me in our Between the Years podcast. In this time between Christmas and New Year, we have a chance to reflect back on the year behind us and to look forward to what is to come. And to all of our listeners, thank you for allowing us to be part of your life. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We hope that you enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
And I'm Jordan. As a product of homeschooling, I'm proud to teach Greek and Latin for Kolbe online and serve as the Alumni and Public Relations Director.
All right, so I'm here with Jordan and Stephen for what has become a tradition for us here on the Kolbecast, a Between the Years episode. Hi, Jordan. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, good to be back.
That's great to be back and have Jordan with us today.
Yeah, definitely. It's the between Christmas and New Year, so Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Christmas.
Thank you. So between the years, Jordan, we've done this episode now between Christmas and New Year's the past few years. So I'll link the previous Between the Years episodes. Tell us though, what does between the years? What's the significance of that?
Yeah, in Germany, they would do this between the years, usually a party or a dinner or something like that. Just a nice meal on one of those long cold nights called Zwischen den Jahren, and that's between the years. They still have so much in their Catholic past that they continue Christmas longer than we typically do mainstream here. My son was born on December 26th, and they call him a Christkind, which means a Jesus baby, basically. Even though it was December 26th, they call that second Christmas day also the Feast of Saint Stephen. I should have named him Stephen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's but the between the years, it was a fun thing we looked forward to, and we kept it up since coming back to the US, invite people over during that lull between those two holidays.
Become a little countercultural ever since a coworker of mine at one year started the night before Advent. Advent started, and so it was I've shifted my thinking now to New Year being the beginning of Advent now. So we'll see.
That's an awesome thing, especially when you're considering the Advent readings at Mass. You know, and that first one from the first Sunday of Advent, it was blowing me away. I had some of my students. We read what the one in the Novus Ordo Mass, and then we also did what they read in FSSP, and they were both so apocalyptical that it was kind of amazing. And I've had this idea for a while now that in the tradition I grew up in, it was like we're always moving towards an apocalypse. But I've shifted my thinking to like we've moved out of an apocalypse, the apocalypse that came in the form of a baby. And it's really amazing how powerful those readings are in the gospel and how kind of scary they are if you think that they're out in the future, which they are with the second coming of Christ. But when you apply them backwards to Bethlehem, it's really awesome, really a neat thing that a baby spells this for the whole world, and they don't even know that it's coming.
Yeah, that circular sort of thing has really appealed to me over the last several years as well, where, you know, getting to the end of the liturgical year and you just like, it just moves right over into the next year. So you're kind of continuing a circle, but hoping for, you know, not like a circle that everything repeats itself necessarily, but kind of there's repetition, but new growth, new things kind of coming out of it too. So
yeah, it's not the snake swallowing its own tail. It can point. What I love is that it points to the future. It's all those inversions, like the first shall be last, the least shall be great. And you see that at the two ideas of like, if you're anticipating the coming of Christ in our liturgical way, that first reading pointing to going to be born. Watch for it. And it's like you get to participate in the last moment of the old world before Christ came to earth. And that's like, I read this thing recently about, like, if you have like a series of numbers and there's one number that divides, it's the dividing number. That number has to belong either to the first segment or the second segment. It can't just stand on its own. And so when you're looking at Christ being born, all that time, it belongs to the new, to the new world. So even it's like we get to participate in the last moment of the old world and then see that split when Jesus is born. It's really awesome for us.
Boy, I love that from like a historical sort of standpoint as well. I mean, we've had multiple conversations here, I think, at Kolbe with the impact of the Incarnation and how we take for granted today a lot of the fact that this changed everything. But just like we're talking about with the readings, though, it's interesting to see some of those late wisdom literatures in the Old Testament and like the book of Maccabees for the historical sort of thing and how it was a lead up to it still. So it's still that it's a new, like I agree with what you're saying, that it's a new time, but there was just this arc that kind of led naturally into this amazingly new era, this different, but still, kind of some sort of cycle to that as well.
Yeah. I was thinking similarly, you've spoken several times, Jordan, about the course of history. There was nothing new until the Incarnation.
Yeah, that's always, it's like one of those very simple distinctions, I guess, that should probably be made. And I think that I've been fortunate that I've been forced to read with my students so much pagan literature, but I'm really, a biblicist. That's what I'm most interested in. And I would have never read Seneca and Cicero and all these guys if I didn't have to with the students. So it's been fun to make that journey and not be in love with the world before Christ. And so I think a classics major probably has a real affinity for that world, and they're more appropriately probably teaching those in most circumstances. But with mine, it was almost the opposite, almost like I was being subversive the whole time, trying to say, yeah, but really love your enemies is better than destroy your enemies.
Those Feast of St. Stephen, do you play a Good King Wenceslas for him every year? Is that among your traditions for the day? You got to play the Christmas Carol?
Yeah, it is actually. I love that. Starting from when he was born in Germany. So he should have been born on Christmas Day. I really wanted him to be because Rene Girard was born. Jesus was born. So many of my heroes were born. But he actually, I mean, American time it was after midnight in Germany, and it was the strangest but most amazing Christmas ever. My wife left to go to the hospital. She was trying to do a home birth, ended up having to go to the hospital because it took all day. She was exhausted, and I was up all night waiting, and then around I think 8 or 9 in the morning, the apartment doorbell rang. I was like, who could that be? And so I buzzed him in, and it was my wife carrying a little carrier and my son. So she gave birth a few hours later. As soon as she could, she took a taxi home and walked into the house.
Whoa.
That's incredible.
What a story. Wow. Wow, I don't even know where to go after that. That's really amazing. So I'm thinking about that from Chrissy's perspective. Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, she's tough. She's a tough one, that's for sure.
She is a steel magnolia. Yes. But I like the idea of the between the years, like they were really observing that Christmas octave. Like it's a one long Christmas celebration. The celebration continues. We're just getting started on Christmas Day. I like that a lot.
Me too. And in those times, it's a good time to be thinking about, our secular new year and things that everybody like starts looking forward to spring already, especially if you're up here in the freezing cold, even though you know it's way out there. It's like that transition into this, all of a sudden we're going to be writing 24 instead of 23 and all of that. So it's always for us a valuable time to kind of get ready for, you know, goals and things that we want to happen during the year. Ever since we've been married, we've kept a journal where we write goals for that year, and a lot of them are huge things, like you know, a new job or something. Which I'm not saying that here on the Kolbecast. Okay, it's not one of mine this year, but in the past, before I found Kolbe, it was really big things like that, or just like that when we were in Germany, that Chrissy's mom would come visit this year, things like that. And then we forget about them pretty much. And then it's so fun the next year to go back and see all the answered prayers. And then we write in the blessings from that year. And we've done that. And now we do it with our kids. So it's really fun. And my wife usually reads back through all of them herself. And it's an awesome tradition. But this time, right between those 2 years, is when we it's kind of when we start talking about let's get that thing out and see what happened.
That's so neat. I've missed it last year, but I try to do on New Year's Eve as sort of a recap with the kids. I find some, printable thing that they can fill out their memories of the year or whatever. I think this is several levels of niftiness beyond that. It's fun to go back and read their responses, but to have it collected like that in one central place and as a family approaching it that way, I think that's really neat.
So for them, is it like memories from the year, like the best things that happened this year and stuff like that?
Highs and low. Well, I guess maybe low, I don't know, like lessons learned. So that could be good or bad, I guess, like hard lessons or good lessons. High points, favorite things about the year, trips or whatever. Best book you read or movie or whatever, what they're looking forward to in the new year, or something new they want to try or want to learn, or things like that. I mean, they're very meaningful. Sometimes I'll find them, they'll float to the surface around here several years later, and they're really neat to look back and see. And I scan them all, so I have them kept digitally, and I didn't get it done this past year. I'm bummed about that. I actually do something similar at the end of the school year too. Same thing there. That didn't happen this past school year. So I'm going to get back at it this year, hopefully. But sometimes the responses are really surprising, that things I had forgotten or something that they picked up on that I didn't realize, they notice far more than we realize. And so all that sort of stuff.
Yes. Since I've been in Catholic education now for quite a while, this is always the slow, Catholic distant, like homeschooling sort of education. This is always the slow time. So, at Kolbe, everything kind of gets shut down from Christmas to New Year's as well. And practically speaking, even before I was with Kolbe, that's basically what happens, because people are busy with their own things at that point. But since, especially the year I started with Kolbe was the year my oldest daughter went off to college as well. So this particular week, this in-between times, ends up being one of the probably like the most peaceful, family-oriented weeks that we have definitely during the entire year, because we don't plan on doing anything. It's just all of us together, and whatever it ends up being, we always find things to do, but it's just a really nice time that otherwise if you take vacation or whatever during the rest of the year, it's always doing something. It's going someplace or whatever. But this is the stay at home, start the fire. Maybe there will be a series of movies or TV shows that we all want to watch together, or reading books that happen to come for Christmas or whatever, and just a really nice time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for us too. I think with little kids, I kept calling it a lull. It's a lull in the action of work, that's for sure. So that's what's nice. I always plan to get something done. Like this year, of course, like what I'm trying to do during our break is to work on um on finishing the Rhinish book, the Franz Rhinish book. I just need some time to do it, but it never happens because I'm like I'm going to go up to the office and work on it, but instead I'm playing with the kids, or they're like on the ice. They love skating up at the college and all that. So it's always turns into those family things, which is the opposite of a lull. It's like, and I noticed when I was on Amazon, Amazon Prime, forgive me, people who boycott Amazon, but I was like, what movies do we have? Like, they were looking for a movie, and I saw all the purchases. They're almost all Christmas movies, because that's probably the only time when anybody really sits down and watches movies, Christmas movies.
Yeah, that definitely brings my family together. There's always a list of the movies that we want to try to watch, or ones that have been recommended that we haven't gotten to yet. And that's about the most certain way to get the largest group, at least up at the TV in front of those. Otherwise, it's just hit and miss.
So you mentioned your book, Jordan. We've talked about it a few times now on the Kolbecast, most recently on episode 179 with Dr. Matthew Meinert. And then before that, you went into more depth on episode 135, Hidden Holiness Made Known. Give us a quick update on your book. Where do things stand with that?
Well, I got it all translated, and speaking of writing things down, like goals and all that, that's what it took. I during the semester, I said, no matter what, I'm going to translate this much, and I wrote it all out by days, and like this week I'll translate this many pages or whatever, and I was ahead the whole time, and then it really made up where I finished a couple weeks early this initial translation, but now it's the going back and making more final decisions. And in that episode, with Dr. Meinert, he talked a lot about the next steps, and it's to go through it, read it a bunch of times in English, and really turn it into English, and not good English, which with German means you've got to break up a lot of sentences and things, because they can have some very long sentences. So I think that I think I'll get it out this year, though. I'm pretty sure that's the idea, is that I think I'll finish off the next couple of phases and start sending it to people. So it's all downhill really now.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you. It is a lot harder. This part is not as much fun, actually.
Hmm.
I was loving translating it because I was reading it so deeply as I was going, and that was the really fun part. It was like discovery. I had read the end closely, but I kind of had skipped over a lot of the in-between details, but they're very important to the ending. And so I really enjoyed translating all of that, and just the thought that I'm being like a mouthpiece to bring it to hopefully a lot of readers.
Yeah, that to me reminds me of any sort of construction project that I've done before. I like the rough part, getting the structure standing, but in order for it to really be nice, there's a whole lot of extra stuff that goes on, and I'm not really particularly interested in that. So I'm always happy when somebody else wants to do the sanding and all of the fine stuff at the end. But so I can see where the discovery stage is over, and now it's polish and sanding and all of those things.
And I think something that makes it different than other books, like my When the Earth Was Flat, that it was like I was doing the sanding and the polishing chapter by chapter, and I was loving it because it was my voice. And part of what I was trying to do is just write it beautifully, write about my ugly hometown that everybody would just drive past and say, how could anyone live here? But try to do the opposite thing and show the beauty in such an ugly place. So I had a blast doing all that. With the translation, it feels different, because it's like I'm trying not to make it my own. I'm like, I would say this way, but I'm trying to stay accurate to the translation. And I think that's what I'm not enjoying with that last part.
That's understandable. And you've been working on it for long enough now that it is so just part of you, that I would think those last little bits are in some respects the most difficult, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it is it's like one of those when you have a project that you love and you kind of, there's something that holds you back from finishing. I don't like my dissertation. I'd probably still be working on it if I didn't have a professor showing me how to sort of finish it and like, this is done. This is done. Move on. You've done everything you can. It's never going to be absolutely flawless. So call it good. And he taught me that. He taught me that with the dissertation, because I had several months where I just kept refining, kept finding another source, and that would open up a new thing. And that's a hard thing probably with any kind of project, is to get it to where I would imagine, though, performing is kind of different, because you have to, you have a hard deadline. You can't just hold on to the piece. You're going to be performing it, right? So that's probably, and then when you perform it, then you're past it or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's always something. Yeah, I think when I pick up something that I know well, that I play a lot, either Christmas music, or I have a lot of hymn tune transcriptions that I play just routinely. I keep them in the repertoire so that I can use them throughout the year. That there's always something that could be improved upon, or that will go particularly well one time, and I'll be like, okay, now I got that, and the next time not so much. Or yeah, I would think, especially with recording, I would think if I were recording them, I would definitely find myself in that same situation. Like, oh, let me just have another go at this. How much time do I have to do this over? Yeah.
Yeah. Producing a thing that's just going to be there forever. I mean, that's a, like, when we did that podcast with the musicians, it was, that could have been something, maybe especially if you're a professional cellist or whatever, that is probably recording. What does it feel? What's the difference between recording and performing and all of that? When I was a musician, I loved to perform, and I hated recording. I only recorded twice. I had experiences in a recording studio, and I did not like it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just too, I don't know. I wanted to just play, but it's like, play it on guitar and then come back and sing to it, and to create these different tracks and all of that. It never felt right. And then it had that element of taking something that's live and reducing it down to a digital file, which there's something in that I just did not. I always wondered if I recorded like the old, like, analog way or something like that, if that would have felt different. But digital recording to me was not fun at all.
I tend to find with a lot of things, I guess recently I was asked to like video record something. Just it's supposed to be short, so I'm still in the midst of that. But right now was when we're recording. But I find that hard. I like being on, the podcasts are fun, or like conversations are fun, where you can lose yourself. You're not thinking about, well, how is this going? Well, as I pause to think, how is this going to sound? But how is this going to sound, or where you're just responding, or where you're not thinking through every single step of it. And so that would be really hard to just like sit down and produce something that's going to be a recording, where it's like, who am I playing for right now? That would be hard.
Yeah, the permanence of it is bit daunting. Like, this is going to be out there for ever. So yeah. And the shorter time frames, those are trickier. Like, you have less time to accomplish. Yeah.
It takes me a while. I'm a rambler, so that need to build up and work, not just jump in one take or whatever. But
yeah. Let's say multifaceted. You have multifaceted things to say. Yeah. Do you want to tell us about your new role at Kolbe, Stephen?
Well, it's similar to my old role, but a new title. So
Okay.
This year, my title is the Chief Homeschool Officer. So a little bit, still a lot of what we focused on in the past, but just making that front and center with the title. So it's still working with advisors. It's working with, the asynchronous. It's working with a lot of great people, but trying to, and everybody at Kolbe's a homeschooler, so it's kind of like trying to work on all of those things to make sure that we're doing everything, working with everybody else to make sure we're doing everything those families need, I think, which is, again, what we've been working on for years. But it's a different title, but generally the same sort of thing that we're doing. And this is the part I love the most. So
what's your sense of the greatest need, or the sort of through line with the homeschooling families that Kolbe serves, that you are looking forward to addressing more? I don't know what adjective to use, to addressing in this, as your as your title reflects.
Well, yeah, for me, I mean, homeschooling is just, again, an amazing sort of thing. So I know not everybody can do it, and that it's hard at times for people, but again, it seems like I've been saying this today or within the last week, but the typical worldview is kind of this weird sort of opposition between children and parents, and you send them off to school, they're doing all their stuff and they're doing their homework and things, but since we've had a chance to homeschool our own kids, it's been the ability to kind of have what you need to kind of give them the education that they need, and a good education, but developing the relationships and seeing how each one works differently, each child works differently, and really trying to grow that from an early point. So, I mean, I think, well, I don't know that everybody does this, but my wife and I have always been very intentional about giving reasons for things from the very earliest age, even when they didn't know, they're not able to understand the reasons, but like saying, I need you to be obedient because, for one thing, like when I tell you to stop or to do something, I need you to do it because there are dangerous things that you might not know about, that I need you to be responsive to that. And I will give you the reasons for it. But, so working from the very early ages on obedience, but then over time, you get this, you can have the conversations about, well, I don't like this, or I like this sort of thing. And you can say, well, you can delve into all of those and then just have conversations. And so it's a parent-child relationship always. So it's always going to be different than that between friends. Strictly speaking, there's kind of there's a different relationship there. But so I think my focus, what I want to make sure is that every family out there that's considering Kolbe or that's doing Kolbe has everything that they need to be successful. And so I've mentioned this before too, but my wife always talks about being a homeschooling mother as being a subcontractor. So sometimes you can do that in your home, and you can I can sit down and do math with my son if that's needed, but sometimes you need things outside of what you're comfortable with. So part of it's service, trying to make sure you've got a place where you can get a good class, you can learn the different material. Part of it's direction, to kind of clearly show people, this is the way we're going, this is what we're working toward. So if you give up something, you know what you're giving up, or if you want to do something different, that you're going to lose some things, even though you might gain those things. And community is really important too, because you need to have people who are there to support you, to listen to you, and to give you what you need. So I guess you've got community, you've got the levels of service that, we've got this great online community, but you really want all sorts of different things. And Kolbe's been just building these things out as time goes on. So like the name's going to be wrong. The special services, the Bonnie, what do they call that? Student support. Yeah. I mean, that's just a great example of seeing that there's a need. People need some extra help kind of adjusting things. But so there's community, there's the services. I also think there's just kind of the direction and leadership, though, because I think so like, oh, school is done in this particular way and you have to do these things or read these books or use a textbook and have these tests, and to kind of provide that guidance to say, we're headed towards an end, so like homeschooling parents, we talk about, again, all these things, it seems like I've talked about a lot recently, but just some of the reassurances, like this is a child who's slow to read. It doesn't matter. They're 7 years old right now, or whatever age they happen to be. It's not a big deal. They'll get there eventually. Let's just keep building on those things. And then really always providing that atmosphere of wonder and searching for the truth, but also, yeah, and holding on to what's true, because we're all guiding. This is all being guided in the benefit of working for a Catholic organization. It's all being guided toward love of God and coming to know God and love God. So there's a lot of those things, but basically, I think I could have said this much shorter than what I just have. I kind of view this sort of role, and Kolbe's role, kind of as I've viewed my role as a homeschooling father. Oftentimes early on, it's like my wife is doing the majority of the homeschooling work, and that's in the family one of the most important things that we're doing. So it's my job to make sure that's supported, to provide for that in whatever way I can to make sure that goes smoothly. So I think overall, just like I kind of view that role as a homeschooling father, I think that's what I kind of like to see Kolbe as, is providing so that the homeschooling parents there have the freedom to and the support to do that most important job that they're doing. So yeah, that's a shorter version.
I think that's really awesome, and there's so much goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize, like as far as like our conversations about stuff that we're working on and all of that. And there are a lot of men in leadership roles at Kolbe, which is newer. When I came on it, I think it was me and Mr. Byarski and then Mike Pace in the office there, so I think that's that provision part of it, but also I was, when you were talking, it made me think of how homeschooling has really changed so much. Like in the time when I was being homeschooled, there were people like my own mother who were searching it. They're saying, I'm going to do this. I don't need books. I don't need anything. I'm going to homeschool no matter what. I don't need somebody to talk to or whatever. But now I've met so many people who are interested in homeschooling that you would never have thought would be. And we at Kolbe, I think part of what we're doing is being sensitive to that and being able to support those kind of people that wouldn't normally search out homeschooling and say, I'm going to do this no matter what, but more, how can we, almost like Home Depot, how they help anyone be a contractor almost, but I guess, but it's still hard, but they have everything you need step by step, that kind of thing, rather than the old days. Like, I'm just going to go to the local lumber yard and figure it out myself. So I think that's a lot of what we're kind of working on, and it reflects sort of your new role this year.
Yeah, I think back to the old school homeschoolers, the ones where it was really countercultural at that time, right? Where you had to choose, and there weren't many of the resources out there. So you had to pick the things and do all the work. And that was a great thing to do at the time. So we can kind of stand on the shoulders of a lot of those old school homeschoolers, but it's less common now. And to a certain extent, you don't need to try to recreate everything now as well, because we've had so many years with Kolbe Academy or, all these great resources that you can find. So now you can just kind of say, okay, Kolbe, help me make sure I'm keeping my child generally on track, that we've got the right aim there, that I'm not doing things that are, as long as you actually, well, okay, I was spitting there, because as long as there's not a whole lot of failures actually in homeschooling, other than to just not be engaged at all, to just quit on it but not pick up something else. Otherwise, as long as you've got the idea of wonder and constant learning, you're going to be fine. I mean, if you avoid mathematics all the way through with your child, yes, they're going to be disadvantaged because they didn't have certain tools that are expected of them. But for the most part, they'll get those. And it's kind of maximizing, I guess, them as a person, but without, well, learning is hard, but it should be a journey of wonder and really a marvelous time, because again, we just take it for granted, because in public school, it's just, if you don't go to public school or do other school, you're going to be in truancy, right? So it's like you have to do this. Well, it's a pretty interesting thing, though, that we can spend the first 18 years of our lives just learning. And if you can actually learn things that are worthwhile, yeah, it'll be hard at times, but that's a pretty high. I mean, in the past, you would have had to been some of the wealthiest people to be able to actually afford that sort of luxury. So we're blessed.
It's a tremendous help to families to know of the support that is at the ready for them. That the folks here at Kolbe who are just happy to help, truly want to help, and it's evident on all levels. And I appreciate the attention to supporting the families that you're giving. It's a real gift. Yeah.
We have so many wonderful people at Kolbe who are dedicated to that mission, and families that are part of our community too are just dedicated to that. So it's just a nice group to be part of.
Yeah, and to know that that folks are available to support the families. However, they're approaching, some come in and they have no idea and almost need some hand holding to get going. And I can relate to aspects of that. Others have a pretty good sense, but they still need that structure behind them. And I think Kolbe is particularly skilled in providing that. So, yeah.
There's a real constant reflection in Kolbe too, because you can go through some of the, like, are we doing what we need to be doing? Are we off track here? So there's a constant tweaking, which is always nice, to kind of self-reflection. And so, although maybe that looks strange from the outside, like you kind of keep reconfiguring things, you keep doing different things, but it's kind of like that cycle that we talked about, the year to year, where you try to see what are the needs, how are these things working, are they fulfilling what the families need and what we should be doing, and then you evaluate and see what's the next thing that needs to be tweaked or added or subtracted or whatever.
Yeah. As with individuals, right? We as individuals need to do that as well. So yeah. Okay. So you just set up a very nice transition here for us, Stephen. I'm not sure if you realize it, but speaking of that sort of self-reflection and continual evaluation, and that idea of growth and movement and serving and refining and things like that. With this episode, listeners might notice a change in our outro at the very end of the episodes when we make our plea to subscribe to our podcast and to share it and to rate and review and all those things that you hear so frequently on all the podcasts. We're the same, so please do that. Please subscribe, rate, and review. But we also have a litany at the end of our episode. Every episode, we invoke the prayers of our Mother Mary, and we've been also invoking the prayers of St. Maximilian Kolbe, but we're going to start also adding St. Ignatius of Loyola to that litany at the end of our episode. So would you guys say a little bit about that, how that's coming to be and why we're doing that?
Well, he's one of my confirmation saints, so I just wanted
Excellent.
to add him.
Okay, that works.
No, that's not. No, we've been spending, so we can jump, but we've been spending a lot of time thinking about St. Ignatius because our founders really treated him as a mentor, as somebody to turn to, as a master that we turn to look for. It's been really interesting, I thought, Jordan, with seeing what St. Ignatius did in the 1500s that putting together a type of education for his Jesuits that they would be formed that just put together really beautiful aspects of education. So there's many reasons to love Saint Ignatius of Loyola, but I think actually a lot of what people talk about in classical education and things like that are really kind of come from Saint Ignatius's changing or putting together the best of different things that will help the student help the student move toward his natural end, which is, you know, back to know, love, and serve God, right? For that, back to the Baltimore Catechism for that. But just the different aspects, and when I see all of that, it's real beautiful what he put together.
Yeah, and he was so brave also, and to have the vision that he did for well, education is the particular angle we've been really delving back into, reading tons of stuff that I think it reflects really the awesome foresight that the Kolbe founders had, that they wanted this Ignatian part of it. So we'd always talked about Ignatian, and we're Ignatian in method, and now we've had an opportunity to with Stephen and I, along with others that are at Kolbe, really looking more deeply, what does Ignatian mean at Kolbe? So if you Google Ignatian education, you'll find all kinds of different stuff, way different. And no one has a monopoly on it if you just call it Ignatian method or Ignatian education. But if you say, what is Ignatian education at Kolbe, we're coming closer and closer to really having this thing, which we think is people are going to love, and it's just a real clear path, very very solid, and I think everyone will love it. And he's also sort of like Maximilian Kolbe in his bravery and looking towards what is to come, preparing people for it, all of that. And yeah, Stephen's right. The way that Saint Ignatius was able to really blend the best of what he had at the time with what he inherited from before, with an idea for the future. That's always the mark that I love. There was a movement in Germany called the Schoenstatt movement, and I remember when I went to their shrine. Actually, Franz Reinisch was a member of Schoenstatt, but I remember when I went there and I saw the buildings and saw the nuns and the graveyards that they had, like everything that was there. The only way I could describe it was it looked really old, and it looked like something out of the future at the same time. And that's a rare thing. But I think that's kind of the opportunity we have right now with what we're doing with this, Ignatius, bringing him much more into the fore here at Kolbe.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this, Jordan, before too, but just I love that with Saint Maximilian Kolbe and Saint Ignatius of Loyola, that it's not just let's go back and dwell in the past, but they clearly saw our role as Christians in the world. So yes, we want to perfect ourselves, but we're not meant to just perfect ourselves and then shut ourselves away. We have to go out into the world. And so it fits in perfectly with the Msgr Shea, the new apostolic era, the post-Christendom thing that, we want to continue to take that up. And I think I see it in the culture of Kolbe whenever I get together with the families and such, that they are the sort of people that want to go and bring our Lord to the world and to show that light, but to not be overcome by the darkness out there, but to shine that light forth. And so really it fits in so well to focus on that. It's exciting.
More conversations to come on that. So here we are in the middle of our school year now. Let's look ahead a little bit toward the end of the school year and commencement in Atlanta in late May of 2024. Would you guys say a bit about the planning that's in the works for that, and any enticements we could offer to the families to come and be a part of that?
Well, again, I think if you haven't been to a graduation yet, it's probably worth going to, even if you don't have a graduate. I know actually that's the case because I've been there the last couple of years. So you have to have, this year I will be there as a father of a graduate, in addition to being there with Kolbe Academy. But it's one of our only so far only kind of events where families can kind of come together. So, where you get to see the other families, you get to see the students get to see some of the people that they've been walking through their education with. So that's already really great, to be with a bunch of people that have chosen the same thing that you've chosen for your family. This year, I know there's some, we'll see everything that comes out, but well, okay, if it hasn't been out there, then this will be a spoiler, but it probably is out there someplace. Msgr. Shea is scheduled to be our speaker, which will be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I think there's some extra events going on then, so that people can hear Msgr. Shea outside of even the graduation ceremony and get together and do some amazing things.
Jordan, you've described the commencement gatherings as how you imagine heaven to be. Do you want to say any more about what you're looking forward to this year, or any develop that or expound upon that a bit?
Yeah, every year it does feel that way. And I think part of it is because of the online nature of being, knowing my students in part, and then it's seeing them fully. And you're like, wow, I would recognize you anywhere. It's great to see you in person. That happens all the time there. I really enjoyed this last time, hanging out with Dr. Hassler.
Yeah.
That was a new thing, and they told us what time to get there to help set up and all this stuff. So he and I were talking, and we're like, what can we do? And they had these teenage boys to set everything, like basically do all the heavy lifting and all that stuff. And Chris Rolls, who's the COO here at Kolbe, he said, I've got the perfect job for you two. And he said, sit at this table. And he put a big stack of whatever the handouts were for that day, like the programs. And he said, can you just fold these right here and talk? And so we sat there, and it was me and Dr. Hassler folding those and getting to know each other really well. And that was super fun, actually. I thought it was funny too. Dr. Hassler is hilarious, as the students know, but even more so when you're with him in person. And he just kept saying, it takes a PhD to do this kind of work and stuff like that. So anyway, that was a blast. So it's so much fun meeting the students, but then everybody, the families. I mean, I cannot imagine that anyone didn't say that is something they'll remember forever when they go to one of those.
We had a wonderful time when we went last year, and there are several events to enjoy. To making it a family trip of it, there's lots of time to spend with the Kolbe families and folks, in mass and the commencement ceremony and meals, and just wonderful time together.
Yeah.
So info comes out on that. It'll be distributed to the families on how to register for that, and so that families can be making their plans to be a part of it. It's really, if you can, please do. It's great.
And I think maybe this was inspiration from you, Bonnie, in maybe your trip last year. But my son is insisting, since it's his graduation event, that he gets to go to the Atlanta Aquarium, which we've been to once when he was just a tiny little boy. But
excellent.
But they have whale sharks, so go to the aquarium after.
Excellent idea. I endorse that. That was a great. Yes, our family did that on our last day in Atlanta. Yep. And it warrants some planning ahead for that. Let me just put that out there. That's something to look into, which we did not until we got to. I mean, we had kind of an idea, like we could go to the aquarium, and it would have behooved us to take care of some of those particular arrangements before we got there. But it worked out. It was a great time. It was really, really neat. Yeah. Well, it has been a privilege once again to serve another year with you guys here on the Kolbecast, working on this with you. It's such a joy, and for me to get to work on this with you all. And my gratitude deepens with every episode. Just we're collaborating with you guys on this. I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity. Our hope for the Kolbecast is that it serves our Kolbe families, and it's one of many ways that Kolbe serves our families and potential Kolbe families and folks who are interested in homeschooling and folks who are interested in the life of faith and living it well. So we are always curious to hear what would be helpful to people. And to that end, we're working on a listener survey, which let's just have a good laugh about that, because when I hear that the podcasts I enjoy have listener surveys out, do I fill them out? No. So I'm hoping that folks will, I might revisit that. I'll try to do better about that, because I'm hoping that folks will do better than I do and fill out our survey for us, so we can get a sense of who's listening and what would be helpful and what folks would like to hear. So be on the lookout for the listener survey so you can weigh in on the shape of the Kolbecast. So we appreciate all of our subscribers and supporters. We appreciate ratings and reviews. As any podcast listener knows, those help other listeners find us. And so we would hope we'd be grateful for those. What else, guys, before we wrap up for this time?
Well, I just want to thank you, Bonnie, for all the work on the podcast. It's been awesome, and everything's just growing. It's growing along with Kolbe itself, and I think you've done a great job. This year was probably better than the best year that we've had so far. So you and Stephen, I think it's awesome. But all the work that actually goes into getting these great guests. Not today. I'm not saying that this today was such a great lineup with me joining you too, but no, it's been awesome. So I wish you the best in the new year, and I'm excited to keep listening and coming on when relevant.
You too. I'm excited for you and all your ventures you have going on, Jordan, and looking forward to seeing what's coming next. And it's always a joy to get to visit with you, Stephen. I'm really grateful for all of your guidance and collaboration too.
Well, I just appreciate your thumb finger on the pulse of the Kolbe community. So, I mean, with getting the feedback, yes, that would be great. If there's directions we can go, but I really appreciate your having your finger on the pulse of the community and what our families need. And I constantly, as you bring these guests in, I'm like, who are these people? And it's like, wow, that was phenomenal. These people are amazing, doing amazing things. Our community needs to hear about this. So it's always good. So yes, thank you, Bonnie.
Well, gosh, thanks, guys. I'm very humbled by your kind words. I appreciate that very much. I was not looking for that, but thank you. I appreciate that. It's just it's a tremendous blessing and a high point. It's a bright spot in my doings to get to work on this with you guys. And I'm just, I said all that already, so I'll just repeat that again. Just really grateful. So
it is really interesting. I mean, what it opens up to me, because, I tend to be focused in on what we're doing all the time, is really, even though some of the people we have aren't technically part of the Kolbe community, they are part of what we're all about. We are such a part of a much larger community of people that are supporting, and you can really lose track of that. But again, I appreciate this as being able to participate in the Kolbecast and listening too, but just that you realize there's just so many people are working towards the kingdom here, that we're working towards and we can pull from all of those. We can benefit from what everybody else is doing out there, and it helps what we're trying to do. We're part of that overall larger effort too. So it's always encouraging to me.
Yes. Yep. It can be easy to think that we're kind of doing this on our own and whatever, but to be able to find the folks who are doing the same or similar or related and work that's going to help us as families and our students as they live their lives, whatever they're called to, that's going to help them do that and be in the world and being the people they're called to be. So to the degree that we can kind of bring folks together in that way and encourage us all to continue to endeavor to persevere. That's happy to do that. Yeah. All right. Well, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. All the best in this upcoming year. I'm really glad we got to have this conversation today.
So am I. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.